You know what I know? I'm just gonna be blunt. It's New York, New Jersey, and you can do that here. For those of you from the Midwest, I apologize up front. But there's too much fear and ignorance around technology. There are literally schools in this country that block children from using cell phones during school. It's the most powerful tool ever invented to manage learning. And I can go on and on about what schools block. And at the end of the diagnoses of what schools block and refuse to do, the only place in the United States where you are not allowed to use the most powerful social tools to manage learning and the most powerful physical tool are in schools. Schools have basically become the learning police. It's an astonishing development. It's probably similar to what happened when the printing press was invented and every effort was made not to allow it out, especially for women, because thoughts were on the part of the people who controlled learning at that time that if women ever were taught to read, they would forever question their role in the kitchen. And you know what? They were right. It ruined you. It did. It ruined you. And here you are, and kings and queens of Europe fell, and democracy was born in the Renaissance. And that technology led to a tremendous amount of change. And now we're seeing the Arab Spring. We're going to see a lot more disruption of governments, similar to the kings and queens of Europe falling. So the real impact of technology is not learning which button to push. The real impact of technology for educators, I think, is understanding societal change. What are the big changes, like women learning to read and redefining their role and becoming leaders? What are the societal changes that we should be paying attention to that have nothing to do with technical training, but everything to do with success in a global economy that's based on the engine of the internet? And I have two kids, they're 22 and 24, and I have my own personal agenda, and that is I would like them to move out of my house permanently. I want them out. And I want them to live on their own with their own checkbook. That's what I want. That's not happening. And so I go around and I ask my corporate clients, I have this dual life between K-12 education and some higher ed, and the corporate stuff I do. What a difference, by the way. Oh my gosh. Massive difference. I had a corporate meeting this morning for lunch here. I mean breakfast. And astonishingly different. So one of the things I ask is, what's the most important skill? If you're starting a school from scratch, see, what worries me is you're all trying to fix what you've got. Fixing what you got in a time of massive change probably isn't going to work. I'll just say it now. I don't think the structure of school, as we've inherited it, is going to get us where we want to go. I don't think it has anything to do with assessment. I think it has to do with the structure of school, the design and the culture of school. So I'm just going to tell you, I've been told by the CEO of the biggest bank in the world, HSBC, and Michael Wesch, who's an anthropologist. You ever see Michael Wesch videos on YouTube? Who's seen Michael Wesch videos? The rest of you, there's 3 or 4 people in the room. Michael Wesch is a phenomenal thinker about youth culture on the web. Probably the best thing you're going to get out of my talk is I'm going to tell you to listen to somebody else. Go type in Wesch, W-E-S-C-H, YouTube, Saturday night, one night, have a blast. Right? Those 4 people agree? Yes, they do. Okay. So Michael Wesch, and then not far from here is Seton Hall University, and I've been teaching a doctoral course there for the last 12 years. In fact, I have some doctoral students in the room. Every once in a while, I get a lieutenant colonel from West Point who's my doctoral student. And when you have a lieutenant colonel in intelligence from West Point who prepares future Army officers, and West Point was the first laptop school in the world. In fact, every kid got a computer at West Point, every cadet got a computer at West Point in 1985 by an act of Congress. At one point, West Point owned more computers than the entire US Army. That's how serious they are about. So here's what I've learned. I've learned if you really want to understand innovation and change, schools are not necessarily at the leading edge of our society. You have to go outside of schools to get a broader understanding of using technology to innovate. If all you did was look at schools, and that's what worries me about this meeting, it's educators talking to educators. I don't think you can get out of the box. I'm just going to tell you. I couldn't. I absolutely couldn't do it. So let me give you a sense. The number one skill, by the way, whether it's West Point, HSBC, or Michael Wesch, is empathy. Global empathy. We don't teach that. We just don't teach it. There's no test. We don't test for it. We don't teach it. Global empathy. It turns out that in an economy based on connecting all the people together in one network of work, which is what we're doing. And there's different cultures and different geographies and different religions and different perspectives. It turns out that collaboration is global collaboration is a really highly valued skill. People who know how to put other people together, even when they can't meet them. But if I could sit in this hotel and I could build a team around the world to solve a problem, and you can't, I have an advantage over you of tapping a network of knowledge that you can't even begin to put together. We block all of that in our schools. We actually don't allow children to understand global empathy because of our attitude of filters. By the way, SIPA, you got to read SIPA. SIPA is the only law of the land in terms of filtering children, and it does not say to block social media. It doesn't say that. So all the leaders in the room, just type in SIPA on an internet search engine. Please read the 5 paragraphs of the law of the land of your responsibility. Schools have overreacted. I know your legal counsel will tell you to block everything, but that's what lawyers are hired to do, is to say no. They would say no if you said, are we in danger of a lawsuit of our playground if someone gets hurt? They'd tell you to shut your playgrounds down too. So I'm really worried that, in fact, on this trip, I started in Saskatoon. We're writing the strategic plan for the province of Saskatchewan. And here, I'll give you an example. Let me give you an example. If you could switch me over, switch the screen over to, let's see. I'll give you a taste of the kind of thing that is going on in Moose Jaw, Saskatchewan. Kathy Cassidy. She has a blog. She's a first grade teacher. First grade teacher. So I'm going to show you what it looks like. As you watch this, I'd like you to tell me if you would even allow this in your school, if this is even allowed. So Kathy Cassidy has a blog, and Kathy Cassidy's blog, let's see, this went up on April 2nd. 432 people have already read that. 432 people have seen first grade children are continuously producing content to help other children learn around the world. They're showing how they do art, how they do music, how they do mathematics, how they learn to read. They are producing learning documentaries every couple of days. Learning documentaries. Children in Moose Jaw, Saskatchewan. And as you scroll down and you take a look at Kathy's blog, here, March 29th, that one has almost 3,000. And what's going on here is some kids in Greece saw their video, and they produced a video in response to the Moose Jaw kids. This class is globally connected. Here, let me give you a sense of that, just for a moment. See, right away, a lot of you can't do this. We're showing student faces. We're showing students creating work. Right now, most of you can't do this. It's all shut down. These kids understand that the work they do is highly valued around the world. Let me show you the data. I like data. Data is interesting stuff, especially to first grade children. So if I scroll up here, and they got videos coming in from all over the world. If I click on their cluster map, I can tell you who's on since in the last 20 minutes. From Russia, California, Texas, Moose Jaw, Utah, Great Britain, those sites have come on in the last 20 minutes. Now, I don't know if you've ever talked to a first grader whose teacher empowers them to create content that's highly valued around the world. That's more motivating than getting a grade. I'm just going to tell you now. We have the wrong motivation system. Grading children is not the highest form of motivating children. Do you believe me? Read Dan Pink Drive. The research is there. In fact, the irony of what I'm hearing today is the more we assess students and grade them, the least amount of work they will do. Till finally they say, what do I need to do to get an A? Just tell me what I need to do to get an A, and that's all they'll do. We really need to read the research. I can't believe what I'm hearing here today. It's going to be another NCLB all over again. I'm just going to tell you. This Common Core stuff, do you really expect this to change education? I'm stunned. I'm just stunned. I know I'm going to be invited out in a moment, but I'm from Boston, and we talk like this. So there's all the states that have seen that site. Here are the countries that have seen that site. These are the list of countries. I think that's a globally connected classroom. Okay, step one. In a global economy, it makes sense that every single classroom is globally connected. Did you write that down? You can't do it. I know you can't do it. You can't go back home and say that from kindergarten through AP Calculus, we're going to have kids working with people around the world. Your filter system will block you. But it is SIPA compliant. That is SIPA compliant. How many of you have a school where every classroom is globally connected? Children understand how to work with people all around the world in art and music and science and mathematics. None of you do. Moose Jaw, Saskatchewan. It's embarrassing as an American. Let me show you another. You know what? How many of you are on the web right now? Live on the web, interactive? Live? All right, here. I'm going to give you a test. See what you know. In fact, I'm going to try to fit into the Common Core. One of the skills I hear in the Common Core is called informational text. That you really have to understand facts from opinion and imagination from facts, right? Informational text. And I've been told that on the Common Core, you're going to have a modified version of the internet that you'll be able to access while you're taking the test. Is that right? All right, all right. So, let's do it, shall we? I'm going to show you what I think it's going to look like. Here's two websites, Wikipedia and abc.net. And you know what? I'm going to force another one. I don't like that one. I'm going to get ear, mouse, and the BBC. And then I'm just going to show you the image. I might, if I put this assessment together, I think I might show you the image of what I'm talking about. There's a picture of an ear growing out of the back of a mouse. You see? Do y'all see that? All right, so just to give you a sense, on the internet, which I think we got to teach people how to use it well, since it is the dominant media of society, if you spend enough time on the web, you will see that there are different versions of the truth. So this one says, on the Wikipedia one, you could read that, laboratory mouse that had what looked like a human ear grown in its back. The ear was actually an ear-shaped cartilage structure. And if I type in and get you to read the opening sentence of a BBC article, it says, the scientist who grew a human ear on the back of a mouse suggested it may one day be possible to grow a liver. Those are two very different sentences. What I'd like you to do, for those of you who have the internet, the rest of you just hang in there, I'd like you to figure out which one's true. Is the BBC article true, or is the Wikipedia article true? And let me just tell you, they have two different names of the doctor. The doctors do two different things for a living. And the ear got there in two different processes. Which one's true? The BBC? And what's your strategy? You can't just guess. You can't just guess. But if I were going to prepare, if I could ignore the conversation I've heard here today, and I decided just to look out in the world and figure out what do kids really need to know. One of the things I think kids really need to know is the grammar and syntax and critical thinking on the internet. I think we have to redefine literacy, what it means to be literate. Because so far, I have not seen a good assessment model anywhere for testing whether people understand critical thinking on the internet. And that scares me. Because the internet is the dominant media our children use. If we were just paying attention. I don't know if you heard, Blockbuster's going out of business. Did you hear? Did you get the memo? Books are over. Did you get that memo? The iPad? All right, so at your table, discuss this, please. Say hi to your neighbor. What's your strategy for determining whether something is true or false on the internet? And let me just take one out. Everyone says get a third source. Everyone says that. Well, that's not good enough. Which third source? Because there's third sources to support both versions of the truth. Say hi at your table. I'll give you 3 minutes. This shouldn't take more than 3 minutes, then I'll show you how I do it. What's the hashtag again? End week live. Okay, let's, in the interest of time and managing a group this big, why don't I show you what I did, and then you can compare it. You have any questions or you have a better way, please tell me. I'm always looking to learn, and I hope you have a better way than I do. So I read the articles and I find out that I try to draw a Venn diagram in my head. They both agree that it's an ear, and they both agree that there's a mouse, and they both agree that it's called the canty. They don't agree on how the mouse got there. That's the big difference between the articles. One says it grew right out of the back of that mouse, and the other one says it was cow cartilage shaped in the form of an ear and sewn in the back of the mouse. Those are two very different versions of the truth. So I would imagine if I were designing assessment, I would want to give students two versions of the truth. And I'm going to give a modified version of the internet, and because you can't memorize everything. We can agree to that. We can agree that many problems that people face in their life, they know nothing about. A diagnosis of a serious disease, or getting married, there's something. I think most people get married with incomplete information. So what I did is I took the indexing tool of Google, the cite command, and I read in different articles that the doctor is at a Harvard teaching hospital. So that wasn't hard. I sorted out the extension of Harvard teaching hospitals, which was easy to find. It's harvard.edu. And then I did a search based on that cite command. And I assume everybody in the room knows this, that Google has operators that have special powers, these words, like cite. That's not a search term. It limits my results to one extension. So in teaching children in the world of the internet, I used to go down the library and probably get some article like the BBC. But with the internet, I can teach children primary source. I can give them a whole different mindset for finding information. And in my mind, the only source I really want to start with is the original lab. Where's the lab that created the mouse, right? That's how I'm thinking. And so I read that it's a Harvard Research Hospital. Well, that's easy. Cite:harvard.edu. And the vacancy and the mouse thing. And then I've got only Harvard content. Harvard.edu, Harvard. If I had typed in Harvard, I would not get Harvard content. I need the cite colon. That's it. And it turns out the BBC is wrong on every count, and Wikipedia is correct. Did y'all know how to do that? I'll give you a problem from West Point. See, when you deal with lieutenant colonels in intelligence, they really have to get the right information at the right time. And very often in the US Army, you're going someplace where you've never been. You've never been there. And you got to make some really important decisions. Life and death. Everybody in the room knows that. And these poor guys, they get shipped out, and they got the command structure, and they get important decisions, men under their command and women, So I'll just give an example. So one of my doctoral students is a European history professor at West Point. And he was given a direct order to introduce Islam into European history because Turkey is trying to enter the European Union. So now you have this big country as a NATO ally and 90% Muslim, and they're trying to enter the European Union. So if they get in, it changes the boundaries of Europe by that economic bloc. Well, they've been turned down. They haven't been accepted. The application, for a variety of reasons, has not been accepted. Well, one day, there's a stir. The Pope gave a speech in Regensburg, Germany, quoting a 14th century Byzantine emperor named Palaeologus II. The quote, attributed to Palaeologus, describes Islam as a very violent religion. In fact, maybe so violent, it shouldn't even be categorized as a religion. Well, that was in German, but somebody translated that into Arabic, and that went around the world. And there were riots in a range of Muslim nations. Turkey went crazy. Turkey particularly went crazy because they're trying to enter the European Union. And they thought this is not a good choice of a quote because part of it is very damaging. And so if you type in Turkey and Pope and Islam and riots and speech, whoops. Well, I gave a talk at Tarleton State University in Texas, and that wasn't there. I didn't mean to show me. In fact, but it's a good point. It's a great point. I'm not from Turkey. In fact, the way this went is the professor asked the students to find the impact of the Pope's speech from Turkey. Well, if you type in the obvious thing, Turkey, you get Alan November, you get Time Magazine, you get the Adventist Review, you get the Daily Mail in London, you get Haaretz in Israel, you get. You don't get anything from Turkey. Nothing from Turkey. But if you think you just did it, you're in really big trouble. Let me show you why. So the first thing we have to do when children are in second grade, is teach them to look up a reference point like you would teach them dictionary and thesaurus. When you invent books, you would have to teach them about country codes on the internet. Every country has a 2-letter country code. A lot of children don't know this. It's amazing how many children can't read internet web addresses. So I can quickly get all the country codes. They're alphabetical. Turkey's TR. I'll just save you the time. So Turkey's TR, and now what I want to do is I'm going to take Turkey out of the search, Pope and riots and speech and Islam and site colon TR. See, the site colon works for any extension, and country codes are in the extension position. So now I have only sites from Turkey. Then if I only want government sites from Turkey, I can click on gov.tr, and I only get official government sites in Turkey. And if I only want higher education scholars who might be reading the original Greek, which we found, then it would be edu.tr. Well, if you're an intelligence officer, you need to know this. You need to know what was the official government response in Turkey, what are scholars saying who read ancient Greek, what was the context of that quote, and what do people on the street think. And so at West Point, teaching cadets how to understand the internet becomes a really important basic skill. I think we should be doing this too. There's no assessment for it. I don't think we're going to assess for it. It's the dominant media of society, and we're not assessing for it. And I'm concerned there are some people in this room who don't know what I just did. I would suggest that when all of you go back to your schools, you shut down your technology planning committees. The real revolution is not technology, it's information. Just like the real revolution was not paper, it was books, it was content. You don't have a paper and pencil planning committee because it wouldn't make any sense. It doesn't make any sense to have a technology planning committee. What makes sense is information and global communication. That makes sense. I think we should be asking different questions than we are. I don't think we should be asking, do kids need a cell phone? I think it's obvious every kid should have a digital device. Okay, let's get past that. Let's say we get past our fear of trying to control classrooms as we've known them, and let's just say that one day we get over that and every kid does have a digital device. Whether you buy it for them or they bring their own, let's just say. And let's say it's on the internet. And let's say it's on all the time, not just when they're in school. I don't know if you know this, but kids are bypassing school filters every day in school. Little kids, because they have their own cell plan. Can we agree to that? All right. So once we've decided that everybody should have a digital device, now what do we do with it? So we're past technology. Everyone needs one. That's true. I think what we need to do, and I know I'm just a nerd wandering around, I'm a big believer in Dan Pink's book called Drive, where Dan outlines that there are 3 motivators that lead people to do their best quality work. And if you have not read Drive, I urge you to read Drive. There's a great YouTube video, Dan Pink, Drive, RSA. How many of you have read Drive in the room? Well, it's about a third of the room. That's a lot of people to have read a business book in education. The rest of you read Drive. There are 3 motivators that clearly are more important than assessing children to get them to do their best quality work. Depends why you want assessment. If it's just accountability, I can understand that, but that's not going to improve the system that I can figure out. You have to show me how. I must have this wrong. What I need is the best designed system, not an accountability that's based on an industrial model that didn't understand the brain and what motivates people. So there's purpose, autonomy, and mastery. There are 3 things that are absolutely essential that people need, including adults, to do their best quality work. Turns out it's not external reward. It's mastery, autonomy, and purpose. Those 3 things are largely missing from American education. And until we deal with the design of the culture, it will not matter what assessments we invent if we do not have the right design of the culture. So I'll give you an example. So here's mathtrain.tv. This one checks off purpose. Let me show you what I think purpose looks like in terms of student work. This is a website that has student design tutorials covering the entire curriculum of 6th grade math. One teacher's classroom in Los Angeles, Eric Marcos. So I just want you to see that this particular video has been viewed 22,000 times. And it's not rocket science. I'll play a little bit. It's cute. It's just cute.
Hi, I'm Bob, and I'm going to show you how to do prime factorization. So what we're going to do is we're going to make a factor tree. A factor tree is you take a number, such as the number 32, and you break it up into its prime factors. So 32, we're going to break it up into the numbers 2 and 16. So we're going to try to get it down to all prime numbers. A prime number is when a number is only divisible by 1 in itself. 32 is composite, meaning that it is divisible by more than the numbers 2 in itself. So 32 is divisible by 2 and 16. Now we are going to keep going. And we see that 2 is a prime number. It's only divisible by 1 and 2. So we're going to circle that.
You get it, right? By the way, one of the most astonishing things is to ask a calculus class of high school kids for the answer. Just in case you're wondering, it's 2 to the 5th. It's amazing, I gotta tell you. So I want to just play a little bit at the end.
All of the 2s. All the circle numbers are 2 times 2 times 2 times 2 times 2, which again is 2 to the 5th power, which is the same answer as we got for the other problem. So this is the prime factorization of the number 32. Well, thanks for listening. I'm Bob, and goodbye.
Her real name's not Bob. They did that for SIPA. But this is compliant. This is SIPA compliant. You can certainly publish student design tutorials if you give them a pseudonym. You will not be sued. You won't lose your E-rate funding. Everything's cool. Everything's good. Now, I know this girl. I've actually flown her to Boston from LA 3 years in a row to do workshops for me. And it's a great deal for me. She works for free. And she teaches teachers how to organize their class to teach kids to design tutorials. Now, that took 3 hours. That 3 minutes took her 3 hours. It's an option instead of doing homework. So I asked her, how long would it take you to do homework? She said 7 minutes. I said, why would you, as an option, your choice, spend 3 hours instead of just 7 minutes? And she said, my teacher already knows the answer, and my friends don't. She said, that makes a difference for my friends. That has purpose to her. Homework does not have purpose to her. I don't know if you agree with my analysis, but I'm afraid that a lot of the work we give children does not have any purpose in their mind. But it does not have to be that way. It does not have to be that way. We can give children purpose every single day with the new tools of invention and creativity and design. We can give every child purpose every day of adding value to the world in one way or another. Autistic kids. So rather than talk about technology, I want to talk about purposeful work, not technology. Purposeful work. There's unlimited amount of purposeful work every day, every subject, for every student. The next thing I'd like, any questions so far? Is my attitude okay? A little rough. A little rough. And I'm a Red Sox fan too, and I know where I am. Yay! Okay. What's that thing in the South Bronx? Yeah. Okay, fine. Now, just to show you what this guy's done too. So purpose is nice because you're helping your friends. Oh, the other thing I asked her is who gets the most benefit out of you designing a tutorial? I asked Bob, and Bob says, I do. And I thought she was going to tell me the 22,000 people who've watched her video. She said, I do. I said, how come you do? She said, well, I never really have to learn my homework. But in order to teach somebody, you really have to learn it. So all of a sudden, I know what learning is. I never really knew. Do you believe that? In order to teach something, you really have to learn it. I'm intrigued by this little kid. So I've shown other kids her work, right? All over the world, Australia, Canada, everywhere I can go, I show kids other kids' work. And I say, what do you think? Just what do you think? I try not to lead them. Every kid I've shown that to and things like that, they say, I prefer to learn that way. And I'll say, why? A little girl said, my teacher doesn't have a rewind button. That has a rewind button. Or another kid says, my teacher explains things as if you're supposed to understand it the first time in class. Now, if you look at John Hattie's work, who did the mega-analysis of all research in education, John Hattie is a really important researcher, happens to be at the University of Melbourne. He did this when he was in New Zealand. They got a team of people together, and they looked at 5,000 different possible interventions, from class size to the education of teachers to you name it. They looked at every possible analysis of trying to improve learning. Way, way up at the top is peer instruction. It turns out that kids are social. There's a newsflash. And it turns out that depending on who you're sitting with at the lunch table, you're going to do better or not in that middle school. Who your friends are is somewhat of a determinant of how well. Good luck if you don't have the right friends. Good luck. Now, what if we could build a culture where every kid helps every kid? What if we actually paid attention to the research? And what if we decided to value children as important contributors every day with purpose? Because we have tools we can do that. It's research-based, peer instruction. Turns out the majority of children prefer to learn from other children, not an adult. And we spend all this time trying to improve teachers. We okay? It's your business. Tell me I'm wrong. Look up John Hattie. Look at the mega research. You got to do that first before you tell me I'm wrong. Look at the numbers, and then we can have a conversation. I have 5 minutes. I'm done. Maybe I'll show you one more. One more. One of the ideas about autonomy, right? We said purpose. We got purpose down. Next is autonomy. By the way, autonomy also comes from game theory. It turns out that if you go to an MIT conference on video games, and you sit down and you talk to some of the top video game designers in the world who are trying to figure out how to take what they've learned over there and apply it to K-12 education. That's a really interesting conversation, because we medicate some kids just to calm them down. Those same kids do not need to be medicated to focus for 5 hours on a video game. Well, what if we could kind of cut back on the medication? That'd be a good thing. So it turns out in video games, I'm going to rattle these off really quickly. When I come back at the end of the day, I'm going to link video game design with some more serious change in the culture with autonomy and mastery. But here are the features. One is you got to get response within 500 milliseconds, 400 milliseconds, half a second. Turns out the brain is learning all the time. You need immediate response to keep playing. You delay the response, learners walk away. They're bored. By the way, go and ask kids to describe school in one word in this country. Go ahead, ask them. It's boring. Not video games. Okay, next element. You never get an F in video game. You never get a C. You never get a B. You only get an A. You only get an A. Failure is rewarded. Over and over, you can fail, you can fail, you can fail, you can fail, you can fail again. But there's no punishment. See, as soon as you introduce punishment into the system, you wipe out a whole bunch of kids. This is well documented. We do this every day. We punish you if you don't do your homework. All right, that's 2. No Fs in video games. Number 3, you got to get a lot of jewels. You got to collect a lot of jewels to move on to the next level. That's mastery. You got to have mastery in video games to move up. Number 4, you pick your level. You don't want to be bored, so you get to pick the level where you start. We don't let kids do that in school. So I have to end now, right? 2 minutes? All right. By the way, Khan Academy, you know this, is based on video game design. So in Khan Academy, if I went there right now and I tried the practice sessions, and you'll have to just shut me off when you want to, and certainly do that. But just to give you a sense, although I don't think schools use it the way it was intended, khanacademy.org. Did I spell that right? Khan Academy. And so if you're doing practice just on elementary stuff, just to show you elementary math, here is the complete layout of the map of curriculum. You can start with edition 1, or if you're bored, you can go to edition 2. So kids can start at any level. You understand those are linked, those are dynamic. We don't teach that way. We have lesson plans. By the way, we have to throw out lesson plans. That is a terrible, awful behavior, which when I come back, I'll explain what new lesson plans look like to replace our current model of lesson plans, which are antediluvian. Honest to gosh, we hang on to stuff way past its overdue date. Now, if I were to do practice, and I'll end on this, if I do practice and I do edition 2, I'll just pick, I'm going to start at that level. So let's see, 82 and 11 is, I'll call it 103. 103. Check the answer. Boom. Within a half a second, I get my response, no grade, and I don't know if you know Khan Academy, you got to get 10 right in a row. That means I might need 40, you might need 20. Somebody else might only need 10. But it's based on game theory, mastery. I don't know how to tell you this. You give every kid the same 10 problems in a classroom, you're not getting to mastery. Our whole concept of homework needs to go out the door. I'm done.